Hi, and welcome to Three Questions With. Got my friend Rebecca Sanborn with us. Hey, Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you taking the time. So, Rebecca, today I want to ask you a question about the four most important best practices for engaging with the LGBTQ plus clients and coworkers. Where would you start?
That is something I'm happy to chat with you about, Kevin. The first best practice that I would share is to never make assumptions about someone's sexual orientation, gender identity, or even their relationship status. And usually when we meet people, if you think about it, you tend to assume that someone is straight unless you're told otherwise. That's just kind of, how we're conditioned, how we grow up in society. That doesn't make you a bad person, right? But if you act on that assumption, that might create a little bit of a problem.
No, I agree with that because, there's times when you just assume, as I've mentioned to you before, I made a comment about someone's girlfriend and he quickly corrected me and said, "You met my boyfriend, Kevin." Now, I'm friends enough with him that I could apologize to him and we could move on. But it was a very valuable lesson that I had to learn and stuff. You cannot make assumptions, so I think that's helpful. And, like I said, but it's being respectful enough to not make assumptions.
Absolutely. And I actually run into this myself. I'm a member of the LGBTQ community. I'm bisexual. I happen to be married to a man.
Yep.
So I can't tell you the number of times I've been at an LGBTQ pride event or I'm wearing a rainbow pin or something. And someone will say, "Oh, Rebecca, you're such a good straight ally. It's so nice that a straight person cares about the community." And it's like, no, I'm actually part of the community, So the danger of assumptions.
Yep. What's number two?
So number two would be, it kind of goes hand in hand, Kevin, with number one. It would be using gender neutral, inclusive terms whenever possible. So instead of saying wife, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, say spouse or partner. Another way to do that is if you're speaking to a group of people, instead of "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," try "Good evening, friends and colleagues." You're taking gender out of the equation altogether.
Yeah, I've learned that it's now the person you're dating.
There you go, the person you're dating. Perfect. So, gender neutral, inclusive. Good example.
I don't wander into that mistake again.
Right.
But again, it's learning from your mistakes and being open to learning and asking people to be patient if I don't know better. Please feel free to correct me and let me show you the respect of, okay, thank you for bringing that to my attention. Now I know what to do going forward. Because,
absolutely.
As we mentioned before, my biggest concern is people being afraid to say anything wrong. So then I won't speak to you, Rebecca. Well, in the workplace, that's going to make a bad environment for everyone. Like, I'm so afraid I'm going to hurt Rebecca's feelings because I don't know what to say, that I'm going to be like, "Good morning, good night," and I'm not going to say anything else. I'm going to avoid any conversation with you. And that's not the solution either, right?
Absolutely not. And Kevin, I'm so glad that you said what you said, because you're touching on the next best practice. And we really didn't practice it this way, right? Not planned. But the next best practice is to ensure that you're teachable with an open mind. And part of that is being okay with asking questions. If you don't understand something, can you clarify that for me? I'm not sure I understand that. And the other part of it is knowing that you're gonna make mistakes. It's like learning to ride a bike, right? You're gonna fall off. It's a question of getting back on the bike and trying again. So you apologize, you learn from the mistake, and you move on. And Kevin, most people in the LGBTQ community can tell when you're trying and when you're making an effort to be respectful. And they'll work with you. They're going to work with you on that. Yeah.
So then what's number four?
Number four is a little more specific. It's to respect pronouns that people use and to share your own pronouns when possible. So this is especially important for transgender people who maybe have switched their pronouns from when you first knew them because they're transitioning, or non-binary people. And someone who's non-binary, for viewers who aren't familiar with that, someone who's non-binary doesn't identify as being in the box of male or female. They see their gender identity as somewhere on a spectrum. So a non-binary person will often use pronouns they, them, and theirs. So if I'm talking about my non-binary friend, I would say they went to the grocery store to get their groceries. I'm going to call them on the phone. So it's really important to do your best to use those pronouns the person is using. And the reason for sharing your own pronouns is it kind of normalizes it and it makes it more comfortable for someone who is trans or is non-binary. You know, if I share, I'm Rebecca and I use she, her, hers, they can be like, oh, great, thanks for telling me. I'm Alex and I use they, them, theirs. If you'll notice on my Zoom title, I have my pronouns listed. So at the end of the day, Kevin, all of these best practices come down to respect and treating other people the way you would want to be treated. That's at the heart of all of this.
I really like your explanation because of using pronouns, because I understand when people are using them to make me aware of it, but I never saw it as the respect side where I'm also sharing mine, although they are he, him, that, you know, I could take it as like, well, it's natural, that's what it would be. But when you explain it the way you did, like it's being respectful to the other person, like, oh, now I get it. I never saw it from that standpoint until you just said it that way. I'm like, well, if it's just he, him, then I could just leave it, right? But now I understand why. And it's little things like that, you know, until someone takes the time to explain it to you why you're doing this and the respect you're showing, when he said like, well, that's super obvious. That makes sense to me now. But it didn't up until that conversation. So
right.
Yeah, but I think you summed it up nicely. Is just, you know, please be respectful, do the best you can, be open to, you know, hey, you know, you said this and this is what you should say next time. Be open to learning, and I think it will all work out.
Absolutely. That, you know, if you can remember what you just said, you're halfway home. You're on your way to engaging in a good manner with the LGBTQ community. And you know, if you want some training, I'm here to help with that. Just saying.
So what's the best way to reach out to you, Rebecca?
Best way to reach out to me is they can reach out to me by phone, which is 603-434-0068, or they can hop on my website, which is sanbornsolutionsllc.com.
Rebecca, I really appreciate you taking a few minutes to come on the show today. And as always, thanks for being my friend.
Thank you for being my friend, Kevin, and thanks for having me.